regular meeting of the Newman City Council, May 27, 2003. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We please bow our heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing us here today. Please keep the city of Newman safe and all the people that live here. We ask that you guide this council and make sure they make the right decision for this community. And this we pray.
Thank you, Bob. Roll call, please.
Present.
Present. Present. Item 5, declaration of conflicts of interest. Have none. Item 6, ceremonial matters, presentation to Officer Goslin. Chief.
Yes, Mayor and City Council, it's an honor for me to be before you again. We have an officer that's distinguished himself. The Mothers Against Drunk Drivers give an award each year, and for the most arrests that are made for DUI, putting individuals, taking them off the roads so they do not cause injury or death to our motoring public and our citizens within Newman. And Officer Goslin was able to, over the last 2 years, get about 54 of these individuals off the road, and it's quite an accomplishment for such our community here. And so, actually, they had an event on April 5th, so I'm a little late in getting this to him, but without further ado, I'd like to bring him forward here and present him with this, and also the number for that, the vehicle code number for that is 23152, and they also provide a pin with that too. I'd like to present him with. So, to Officer Goslin for his for your contribution to MAD's mission to stop drunk driving, support the victims of this violent crime, and prevent underage drinking. Dated April 5th, 2003. Thank you very much. And here is your 23152 pin. And I don't want to cause a comp claim, so I think I'll have him put that on later. So, and he also gets their logo pin also for his uniform. So with that, again, thank you very much for your indulgence. Good job. Photo op. Oh, okay. You get natural at this.
Thank you, Officer Goslin, and please keep up the good work.
Let's get that photo on the front page.
Item 7, communications from staff. Mike?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I just want to give you an update on where staff is on a few proceedings. On our June 10th meeting, you will be having an abatement hearing. A fence has fallen and it fell onto a school site, and it's created a public hazard for the kids and teachers on the site. So this is on Von Renner. So we've given them 14 days to clean up the site. If not, we're going to have an abatement hearing at your next city council meeting. We've been getting a lot of inquiries about the Mellow Trucking. Staff is just looking into it, see what their use permit approved and some other issues that are involved there that may come back before the planning commission. But yet it's undetermined, but we're also investigating that in case any of your constituents ask. And lastly, the old former nursery site on the north end of town, we have an abatement letter that will be going out to them, and I anticipate that will be becoming within the abatement hearing at the second meeting in June for you. With that, I can entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mike?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other communications from staff? None. Okay, item 8, items from the public, non-agenda items. If an item is not listed on the agenda, this is the time to come to the podium and make your addressment. Is there any non-agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to items from the public, agenda items. At the time the item is announced, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and please try and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Item 9, public hearings. Open public hearing to establish utility underground district, number 5, Kern Street to the north, N Street to the east, Merced Street to the south, and Peace Street to the west for undergrounding service utilities, and continue said public hearing to the June 10th, 2003 City Council meeting. Ernie?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As stated in the city manager's report, Stanislaus County presently has over $600,000 of Rule 20 money that's available for undergrounding existing utility services. The areas that we're looking at are these two alleys between N Street and Peace Street, from Merced to Kern Street. The reason this was selected was to further enhance the investment of our streetscape program and future plaza, and to eliminate potential safety hazards for pedestrians, merchants, employees of downtown businesses. The second paragraph in the staff report has erroneous information. These were the rules from before. Unbeknownst to me, the Rule 20 has been upgraded. We're playing under different rules now as of last July. Before these changes were made, Rule 20's monies could only be used to underground the existing overhead utilities within the rights-of-way and to extend service connections to property lines. Any other modifications to service boxes, conduit runs, everything else had to be incurred by the property owner. New rules for the replacement overhead underground electrical rates. This is the entire Rule 20. I downloaded it from the internet this afternoon. And as it states in the first page, PG&E at its own expense will replace the existing overhead electrical facilities, provided that the governing body of the city has 4 reasons for it. Number 1, such undergrounding will avoid or eliminate unusually heavy concentration of overhead electrical facilities. 2, the street or road or rights-of-way that's extensively used by the general public. 3, the street or road or right-of-way adjoins or passes through a civic area or public recreation area or an area of unusual scenic interest to the public. And 4, the street or road or right-of-way is considered an arterial street or major collector. So any one or more of these qualifies it. Under B, we need to adopt an ordinance that creates the underground district, and it further tells that we need to have all existing overhead communications and electrical distribution facilities be removed, and that each property be served from underground facilities. Your second page, 3rd and 4th, pretty much just talks about how they allocate the monies to the cities and the counties and the formulas that they use. But on the 5th page, this is the one that's of interest to us. A3, the undergrounding extends for a minimum distance of 1 block or 600 feet, whichever is the lesser. The project has to be at least at this minimum. Upon request of the governing body, PG&E will pay from the existing allocation of that entity for A, the installation of no more than 100 feet of each customer's underground electrical service lateral occasioned by the undergrounding, and B, the conversion of electric service panels to accept underground service up to $1,500 per service entrance, excluding permit fees. And it goes on to say that you have the right to establish a smaller footage allowance or that you may limit the amount of money to be used for these modifications. The following page just talks about other scenarios having to do with other applicants. And the last page talks about before, in the middle of the paragraph, it states, in the event the project is not approved to proceed within 2.5 years of PG&E's delivery of such engineering design study, the requesting city shall reimburse PG&E for its cost of such engineering design within 90 days of a demand by PG&E. In the event payment is not received, PG&E shall have expend such costs as operational costs and shall reduce the city's allocations provided under this section. What that really means, I don't know. I deferred to legal counsel for that interpretation. Any questions you may have?
Yeah, I have a question, and I'll
Yes, sir.
pose it in the form of just now being presented this document this evening. I can understand from the staff report of having erroneous information and then being presented with the correct information. Kind of give me a bottom line view of this under this Rule 20. These funds that you're saying exist, the 600,000 through Stancroft, I presume, or through the county.
Through the county, yes.
Are being guided under these rules that are through PG&E. You're just asking for the application of this so we can forward through to try to see if we can get some of those funds for the purpose of this.
The county pretty much has already indicated that these monies are available and they're yours. All you have to do is follow the procedures, which means develop your district and adopt the ordinance. Once the city has done this, then it moves to the county. They do their thing, and then the monies are transferred.
Okay, but this pot of 600,000 sits in there for the whole county, so there's 9 cities plus the county. What kind of allocation are we looking for a project such as this? We don't even know the ballpark figure to do this.
This is a project that we've been pursuing for a number of years. Prior councils, they directed staff at that time to look into it to see if Rule 20 money was available. I met with a PG&E representative about 4 or 5 years ago, and he looked over the area, which, they needed to assess it, make sure that it did qualify. It did. At that time, he stated that we were looking at about $200 a running foot. So we're talking about 2,800 feet of, including both alleys. So that pretty much gets into that ballpark of about $600,000.
But you're giving me an estimate from about 4 to 5 years ago, though, aren't you?
That is correct.
What I'd like to see, if my colleagues don't object, I would like to see this because I think it's very progressive and I think it's something that we should do and see the city proceed with. But I would like to see it more comprehensive from staff to give us a little bit more information. I mean, I'm kind of pulling it out of you a little bit by asking these pertinent questions. I think it's something we want to do, and I think these are some funds that we certainly should go after. I'm just wondering, are we the only city that's going after these funds? And I don't want to get caught in that area where you asked about with legal, where we're not prepared to go forward because we don't have the money and PG&E wants to charge us for all their work.
I see.
Can I add to that, Ernie?
Sure,
What
please.
What happened, Councilmember Parker, is about 2 or 3 years ago, I learned that the city of Riverbank had requested this funding from the county, and the county gave it to them. They needed, I forget what their amount was, a couple of $100,000. And so at that time, we began pursuing it, and we've been actually going after it since that time for the last couple of years. On several, I think Ernie's written 2 or 3 letters to the county requesting this, that we be given some of this funding. And it wasn't until just recently, in conversations with George Stillman, the Director of Public Works, that he stated that, yes, the money is there. We've talked to our county supervisors, and they've said, yes, we can give the money to Newman. So he is willing to get us this money. In fact, he was the one who said, you know, he's given us some of this information on the resolution that has to be passed to set up the district, and said, here's the information, get your district passed, and we'll get the money transferred to Newman. And so he's very positive, and he wants to move it forward and wants to get us this money. So I'm, you know, very confident that we can get this money to do this project.
And like they say, we have spoken to them for about 5 years, and at that time they had always tried to do what they could to make sure that we got that money, and you know, they're right on the mark as far as how long it's taken.
That's when, as soon as they said, yes, the money is available, I wanted to jump right on it, you see, but, yeah, but one of the things that last week when, in speaking with the PG&E rep, I was just, savvy to these old rules, so that's why the staff report was written as such. But when I wanted to talk when I spoke with the rep this afternoon, he said, the rules have changed, you might want to take a look at it, so I went and downloaded this information, so my apologies.
Well, the way that it sounds is this is more favorable actually for the business owners, because I actually was posed with a question. I didn't know about this until I saw the staff report, but I was posed with a question by some business owners of what expense they might incur, which they might oppose this if it were going to be too cost prohibitive for them.
Sure. And that's the reason why I directed Ernie, you know, we needed to get this going, but I directed him, we'd already advertised the public hearing, but I directed him to write the report in such a way that we needed to get some more information to the property owners. And based on what we thought was the old rules where it would not pay for that, the new rules are now stating that, no, you can pay even for the private hookup to the property owners, so there would be no cost to the property owners is the way we're understanding it. I would still like to go out, I mean, we're kind of running as we get this information, and I'd still like to take this extra 2 weeks now to verify all this information and make sure we are clear, because I don't want to go into forming this district and find out it's going to be a cost to the an unexpected cost to the property owners. Originally, the estimate we'd been given was something like $100 to $200 to a property owner, so it was not a huge amount. But we had some questions about whether or not that was going to vary for different ones that might have longer runs and et cetera. And that was the reason why I asked Ernie to put this on as being a continued item to your next meeting and allow us to verify
that
the
was smart.
information.
And I also met with an electrical contractor today, and we ran the alleys, and we found that, you know, it'll take up to $1,500 pretty much on a lot of those. Some of the buildings that are close to the alley, it's not a major issue. It's, you know, it's easy enough to drop the overhead connection and come in from the underground, but you have some buildings that sit in about 50 feet, then you have some slab areas in the way and other buildings, so there will be additional expense by the property owner, but these $1,500 really offsets off a lot, and many of the owners won't have to pay anything.
Is there any more questions for Ernie before I open the public hearing? Okay, I'll open the public hearing at this time and take comments from the public. Mr. Navarro.
Bob Navoa, 940 Fresno Street. I'm relieved to hear that we may get off the hook on this. Even though I want everybody to understand that I've always supported the undergrounding of these utilities. I thought it was something that needed to be done, and so I concur that it needs to go forward. However, there is one thing that I haven't heard tonight, and that's about other utilities besides the power.
As far
And
as
there
like
are
cable TV and
telephone, right. And so I would ask council and staff to address that to what it's going to cost the individual property owners, because obviously some of us are renters, and that's going to get passed along to us. And so I think it's important that not only notify the property owners, but you need to notify each business address to what the costs are going to be, or at least make sure that we understand that we need to go to those people at whatever time you provide that information so that we can find out what those costs are going to be.
Sure. Do we have any costs on those, Ernie? Or?
I have not met with Pac Bell or Comcast regarding these issues. However, it was taken into consideration. The first page of the Rule 20 money, that's why it asks for that you adopt the ordinance. It says too that each property served from such electrical overhead facility shall have installed in accordance. Let's see, all electric. No, hang on. Where was it? Oh, number 1. That all existing overhead communication and electric distribution facilities in such a district shall be removed. So this is what your ordinance does. It does direct those utility companies that they must underground. However, I don't know if they have the authority to go ahead and pass on those costs after such a mandate. But I will look into it and I will report back.
Quick as we can.
Yes.
Is there any public comment? If not, I would like a motion to continue the public hearing to the June 10th meeting.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 10, consent calendar. Approval. Item A, approval of warrants. Item B, approval of minutes of the May 13th, 2003 regular meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 11, regular business. If it's okay with all my colleagues, I'd like to switch items A and B.
That's fine.
Do B first and A last. Is that okay with everyone?
Those are my thoughts.
Okay. 11, regular business. Item B, authorize city manager to execute lease agreement with Crystal Garcia and Joaquin Pacilius for property located at 1361 Highway 33, formerly John's Muffler. Please.
Mayor and council, you have the lease agreement attached to this document. I have met with the owners and they are in agreement with them. You also have attached a list of items that they plan on taking care of, some things, upgrades to the building that they will take care of on their own. I spoke to them today. They wanted to be here tonight. They had an appointment in Stockton. They did not know if they would make it back in time for this. I told them that I had not heard any concerns. I think that with this approval, I thought it was okay. So I don't know if they will show up later or not, but for now they told me they would attempt to get back for the meeting. But with that, I don't really have anything else to add. The specifics of the lease, as requested by the council, is an 18-month lease. Cost per month, $555 per month. Then there's other provisions that we had included in there as far as assuring against any spills, hazardous waste spills, such as oil, et cetera, requirements to keep the property looking clean and et cetera, so it is presentable on that corner in the center of our city. So with that, I don't have anything else to report on.
So clear these 10 items on here, they're going to do those themselves then?
That's correct.
And how about down about the bathrooms? Are we going to work with them on that?
What's going to happen is we will repair the one restroom and make that available for the use and for the public use, and that will be all that will be required.
Okay. Any other questions of staff?
Before I move to authorize the execution of this lease agreement, do we know how they keep the contaminants, the oil? I know there at that property we dealt with an unexpected tank that was there,
Right.
and I certainly would think that there should be some thoughts on behalf of the city that we don't have any contamination after they're used for 18 months. How is that product contained and shipped off in a business manner?
They will be contained generally in 50-gallon drums, is
Containers.
what I understand, and how they do it, and it will be shipped off by companies that come in and collect those. So there'll be everything will be above ground where it's visually able for us to see and et cetera. There'll
And
be nothing
it won't
that's
sit on site for too long where we can actually have
No.
an inspection type of situation. Okay.
If there's no other questions of staff, have some direction?
I move that we authorize the city manager to execute a lease agreement with Crystal Garcia and Joaquin Salas for the property located at 1361 Highway 33.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item A, review and discussion of 2003-2004 preliminary budget.
Mayor and Council, I'm just gonna start off quickly and review a few things that I gave you in the budget transmittal letter, and then I'm gonna turn it over to our finance director, Margaret Souza, to go over some various things, and then we'll open it up for discussion with the city council. As mentioned in the budget, there are a lot of concerns this year and going into the budget. There are many items that there are still some uncertainties that we have based on the state's budget. One critical item that I mentioned in my letter is a $250 million take, if you will, by the state that they are proposing to take from local government, which is still out there that we do not know where that is going to come from. All they've stated is $250 million from local government. They haven't said where it is going to come from, just that we're going to take it from you. That is still not an adopted budget by the state, so that also may change before it gets to us. But it is an item that has been in there. It was in the January budget, is still in there in the May revise, and therefore we believe that perhaps that may still have to come out of our budget. This budget that I presented tonight does not deduct anything for that amount. That is an amount that would still have to come out of this budget eventually when we get to that point of being prepared to adopt it. With that information, staff proceeded to go through the budget. We started out not looking very good, and we've done some things to correct that and get to where we are today. With that, we have, for example, the general fund, which is the most critical, that we pay the most attention to. Well, we pay attention to all of them, but that is one that is critical to us because it is discretionary funding and is hard to come by, if you will. At the current time, the budget that is presented to you with the recommendations of the city manager show a budget deficit for current year only, revenues over or expenditures over revenue, of about $64,000. The budget shows the original budget that was submitted to the city manager by the department heads and prepared by the finance director. The far right-hand column, or the right-hand column, shows the city manager's recommendations. Next to that is an explanation of those recommendations. Generally, some of the things that I went through and looked at: number one, we reduced the annual newsletter from twice a year to once a year. We cut all travel expenses by 50%. I recommended eliminating the employee dinner and incentive awards and to continuous employee service awards. Cut back proposed improvements to the museum by $5,000. Recommended waiting 1 year for the purchase of new turnouts for the fire department for an amount of $2,000. Eliminate the purchase of additional tables and chairs at the memorial building. As you recall, we purchased half of those, and we were looking at possibly purchasing the remainder this year. Increase recreation fees to cover actual cost of the program, plus 15% to cover overhead costs. The difference between what I cut out and the original amount amounts to approximately $41,000. That is the major things that have taken place in the general fund. To the water fund, we are still okay. However, we are showing a deficit of of expenditures over revenues in the current year. This has been the case for the last couple of years, and we're becoming increasingly concerned about that fund. We still have a positive fund balance, so it is not critical for this year, but it has been quite some time. I'm estimating approximately, I didn't go back and check the exact date, but about 12 years since we have had a water rate increase. And we feel that it is time to begin to look at that this year and perhaps do the rate study and bring that back to council during this year and prepare to increase those rates. Wastewater fund is in good condition. We looked at that, and over a period of time that's been kind of up and down as far as revenues and expenditures, but overall that fund is still in a healthy position. We're not recommending any changes there. RDA, we have a real concern. As you look at the budget, there's approximately $100,000 that is being proposed to transfer from our redevelopment agency to the ERAF fund that the state has created, the Education Revenue Augmentation Fund, I believe is what ERAF stands for. And this is to supplement and help the state basically balance their budget. And that's $100,000 that they're proposing this year. That's based on a $250 million take from RDA this year. The current proposal of the governor's budget shows that that amount will increase by $50 million each year for the next 14 years. So as you can see, that could have a very devastating impact on our redevelopment agency.
Can we bring the number more specific?
Sure.
Down to what exactly our redevelopment is looking at losing? Because you're speaking
Well,
in the big
out of the
state terms.
$250 million,
Right.
that is the $100,000. Is that correct, Margaret? Approximately, that they're taking this year. So take that by 1/5, it'll be $20,000 perhaps over the next 14 years.
I just think it's important that when we talk in big numbers, we know how it affects our city directly.
Sure. There's two impacts that has on us. Number one, if those numbers continue to drop, most severe impact, well, the first impact it would have is for salaries for the city manager or redevelopment agency director, whichever title you want to give that, the community development director and the finance director, all who spend a quite great amount of time on redevelopment type projects. Those salaries would eventually get to a point where those would no longer be able to come out of the redevelopment agency because the money would not be there. We would have to shift those back into our city budget, which would probably be, well, most definitely would be the general fund where those, so that has an impact again on our general fund. The other and probably a more severe concern that we have is that eventually if they continue to take that money, it could affect our ability to make our bond payments. As you recall, we took out a $3.4 million bond in 1997, and that is a 30-year bond. Is that correct, Margaret? 30-year bond, which we will be making payments on. And there's the possibility that they could reduce our tax increment low enough to amount that we would not have sufficient tax increment to pay for our bond. With that said, in the current year, our RDA is doing fine. The tax increment money is there to cover the programs that the council has had in the past, to cover the salaries that I have mentioned, and to cover our bond payment and to make that ERAF payment. So we are okay in the redevelopment agency this year. However, I want to bring that up because it could become a great concern in future years if they continue to take that money as they are talking about from redevelopment agencies. With that, I think I'll turn the time over to Margaret to make a presentation on the budget, and then we'll bring it back to council for discussion.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. You have before you tonight a working draft of our preliminary budget. It's gone through about 5 screenings. We normally do 7 before it goes to council, but this year we stopped in the middle of the process to step back and review where we are. And where we are is a place with no state revenue projections. We don't know what the state's going to do, let alone how much money they're going to take, and we're just not sure of exactly where we're going to be on the revenue side of our program come June 30th. Next meeting we hope to present to you a completed document, at least with the council's input on the expense portion, with reasonable estimates of what the revenue will be, and ask for an adoption with including the changes and the refinement, because we are required by law to adopt the preliminary budget by June 30th. Changes can be made and will be made before the final budget is adopted sometime in September or October. And you know the process that basically you have to balance the budget. The cities are required to do that. And you have to look at every expense, every service, project, purchase, program, and you need to know where the money's coming from to balance it. And by doing so, every revenue, expenditures are governed by where the revenue comes from. And we have 3 types. Enterprise fund, that's our water and sewer, which allows us to charge for the actual cost providing the service. We have special revenue. This is money that typically comes from other agencies, but it's money that you are instructed to spend in a specific manner. You get this money from someone else. You don't have the discretion on how it's used. And then lastly, and what is most important to us, as Cleve explained, is our general fund. This is money that comes from sales tax, property tax, motor vehicle fees, and it allows you as the decision makers, policy makers, to decide what services are important to the city and what's going to have to be cut. In 1960, these taxes made up over 77% of our revenue. Today they make up less than 9%. And the result has been a deep impact on our city services. You could either cut or eliminate services. You could do an across-board cut, percentage cut, just arbitrarily say we're cutting X percent from every item, or you may need to cut by program or by project. You could, on the other hand, raise revenues, one, by charging the users and those who are benefiting specifically from a certain service we're providing and have them pay for the actual cost of receiving that service. Two, you could get funding from elsewhere, but as we stated before, by doing so, you will get the funding, but you are losing your control over the funding. And we see as the state takes our money and then they turn around and give us back a small portion of it, pat us on the head and say, nice little city, you are to spend your money in this fashion. And it doesn't always work out because it's very restrictive and it hurts the rest of the city. Or thirdly, there are creative methods that we have used, such as the formation of the redevelopment agency, which uses different means of raising funding, but now we see that this is also in jeopardy. We reviewed all the costs involved. The labor costs, your salaries make up like 60% of the budget, and unfortunately a lot of that is governed by already agreed upon contracts, and that's difficult to change those. We list all reasonable programs and requests that department heads make, and those you will find in the first column under the requested budget portion. We try to include all the costs, and oftentimes for a major project it's very difficult, and it never turns out exactly by the time the program is completed, it never is what we projected at the beginning of it. We total then all the expenses by fund, and then we tie that to what we expect the money to collect in that fund, and we see if we're balanced. We are balanced if the cash on hand plus the revenue minus the expenses is a positive number. If it is, we're okay. If it's not, we're in trouble. But we also go one step further. It's been the council's practice in years past to always keep expenditures lower than revenue, at least in the general fund, and by doing so, you will not be in trouble. It's going to be very difficult to do that this year. And even though it appears that we have a healthy reserve, if we dip into that a couple of years, it will not be very healthy. We have problems. Cleve touched on them. In redevelopment, the state is using our redevelopment money to actually balance their budget. This year we were charged $20,000. Next year it's projected to be 3 to 6 times more, which I project to be about $100,000. That's not sure. Again, it's just what they estimate. Also, our pass-through, we have committed to other agencies when we created the agency, that over these years, as the taxes go up, and we're getting them all, this is money that they thought they might have gotten. We have agreements with them to share that, to pass through that tax increment to them. We have reached the 10th year of the agency. That is bringing the pass-through percentages from 2% in 3 of the 5 agencies to 5%, and some even higher. And that being the case, this money, even though we collect it and it's collected on our behalf, we don't see it. They've also changed the way we calculate administrative fees. Of our redevelopment dollar, 20 cents of that has to go to housing set aside. And in order, the number that we have to use to calculate the housing set aside is based on the total gross increment, including what the pass-through amount is. So even though the increment looks like it's $100,000, we might end up giving $25,000 of that to the schools, the Yosemite Community College District, the Mosquito Abatement District. We calculate the 20% on the full $100,000, so we lose another 20%. The $75,000 that may go to the other agencies, and 20% off of that, the whole total, to the pass-through amount. Administrative charges used to be able to be netted out of what we got from increment. Now they're requiring us to add that. Take your gross taxes. Don't take out the administrative costs before we calculate our housing set-aside. So even though the numbers of increment look good, what we take out from it looks worse. State funding, things that could be in jeopardy. Like, again, the COPS grant this year, it's AB 1913. It appears as if it may stay. All indications are that it might, but that's $100,000 we can lose. We've lost police technology grant. It's amounted from $30,000 to $16,000 last year. Booking fees backfill, it was $11,600 2 years ago. We didn't get it last year. Cleve indicated this evening that perhaps it is in one of the versions of the Assembly's budget. 11,000 we might get back. ERAF money backfill that we got 2 years ago, 21,000, we're not getting that back. The worst one is a motor vehicle fee. That's 400,000 in general fund, and that's the stable rate. If we were able to up it like it should be up every year, and as it has been, we could be losing over 450,000 if they chose to cut that revenue entirely. AB 2928, this is a street repair fund. 3 years ago, we got 45,000, then 18,000, then 14,000. Now we're not getting anything this year, as far as I can tell. Post-training for our police officers, we got 12 to 15,000. Now we project maybe 800. Proposition 172, this is the quarter-cent sales tax. I believe that's governed by statute, but that's 30,000 that we get from that funding source goes only to public safety. That could be in jeopardy also. Interest rates are low. They're very low. I thought last year when I told you they were low, I didn't think I would ever say they would be lower, but they're lower. It makes a great deal of difference in our investment portfolio. Good news is our capital facility fees are up. We altered the rates a year ago to reflect the inflation factor from the 1992 and 94 rates that were established for impact fees. Unfortunately, at least we have these adjusted rates. That's the good news. The bad news is all the building permits that are being filed are those that were vested, and they are being charged at the old inflated rate instead of the new, more better rate until all this vesting is through. So I think we're going to see that for like 10 years. Now, most of the subdivisions that are being built have already been invested, and they are being charged the lower old rate. Current problems with this year's budget. Currently, salaries, we have 35 allocated positions. That's up from 32 from 2 years ago. This will be the first year that all 35 may be filled, or the positions have been allocated for a full year. Police retirements going from 16.353% to a possible 24.7% as a result of the contractual change for PERS for 3% at 50. Health insurance, I just projected a 15% higher than last year because we have no idea how high that's going to be. Contract services is relatively level, except for some new studies that we're having, but all these studies are coming out of other funds than general fund. We're doing the housing element, hopefully the general plan. Wastewater treatment plant will be having a study. The water fund also will be requiring a study in the near future, maybe this year or nearby. Supplies, vehicle maintenance, and other services are basically the same. Capital has been rather limited in general fund, except for the purchase of the fire rescue truck, but the amount that is coming out of the general fund will, I've got a verbal okay from Police Chief Souza that says that West Stanislaus Fire District has agreed to pay a portion of the new rescue truck, and that's what I've charged revenue and expense-wise. That's very kind of you folks. Principal debt is much higher this year because it is our intention to pay off the bond for the fire station. We have 5 years left on that bond. It gradually goes up, the interest rate grows up on this particular bond, and we'll save over $25,000 in interest if we pay it off now. It's up to over 8.5%, so it's foolish to keep on paying this when we could save, and we're so close to it's being paid off anyway. But it will take a $107,000 hit on our part, and half of it, another $107,000 will be covered as per contract by the West Stanislaus Fire District. Okay, so we can go over, I think we'll just address questions that the council may have on the document.
Now that we're all depressed, Margaret, sorry.
Margaret, you did a wonderful job. Margaret, when is the bleeding going to stop with the state? I mean, do you have any forecast as far as when things are going to get better for the state?
I think just when the overall economy, so much of the state income is based on the state income tax is based on the dividends and the items that brings in the revenue right now. As long as the economy is hurting and the stock market is hurting, until they change their way of charging income tax, a lot of that is going to continue to hurt. So it's a, and then you have to distinguish between the real problems and what they like to say. I've heard cries like this since '78, when after Proposition 13 was passed.
It never ceases to amaze me how people that are so smart can get into so much trouble
In such a short time.
in such a short time.
Councilmember Martin, I was just gonna mention, and maybe Councilmember Parker and Mayor Fanny would add, but most of the projections people I talked to last week up at the state were saying, we're probably gonna look at tough times for the next 5 years.
More good news?
It was kind of funny hearing what you were saying, Margaret, dating back to 1960. That's before my birth date, I might the changes that have occurred from that time period where we reached 77% of our taxes here locally until where now we're somewhere around 9%. I like to just put that in such good layman terms that people understand. All the money goes up to the state and then it trickles back down to the local cities. We're right here with you, so we get the brunt of what happens with the services, what happens with the police, fire, your sewer, your infrastructure. So the city hall is here, we're here, and so we're going to feel the pain right here with you. On the state level, it's in billions, so it's hard to see. When Cleve, our city manager, is speaking about 250 million and 50 million here, well, that adds up to tens of thousands for us here on the local level in Newman. We're going to be faced with some serious, difficult cuts, not just what has been outlined by the city manager, which I take into consideration, but for each of us to take a real fine-tuned look, because this is preliminary. We're looking to adopt a preliminary budget our next meeting. But I'm going to take it upon myself to get down there at City Hall and roll my sleeves up, take an even more comprehensive look, because we're going to have to look at where we can cut out maybe certain areas that used to be something we could afford, but now are perks, given our budget situation. Speaking directly at the funds that you're talking about that are up in the air, $400,000, which are the vehicle licensing fees, that's where you'll see where you're currently paying your vehicle license fee go to triple that amount if we were to have our money the way we're supposed to. Nobody wants to pay that, but that may be something that you may see if in fact they do that at the legislative level. They're holding us at bay. We just don't know.
And we're not getting any more money. The fact is we're just keeping the money that used to traditionally always be ours in the first place.
Our hands are sort of tied because we really don't know. That money is not in place. We don't have it yet. So we can go through all of this process and say all the things that we're going to purchase and have expenditures for. But if the revenue doesn't come, it all goes. But I have a question though. We talked about paying off the fire department, which will cost us some $107,000, which is going to be matched by the West Side.
They will also pay $107,000.
Because we don't want to pay the monthly payments because of the interest rate. Can we afford to do that?
Yes, we have a capital repair replacement fund. We also have the capital facility improvement fund. Those money has been set aside and we just make it. That is the fund that we make the principal payments out anyway, but we have been accumulating funds for 9-10 years in the capital facilities, and I think we institute about 8 years in the capital repair replacement. So those two funds combined,
I think we'll be
we're
great
okay,
for
we'll
us
wipe it out, but
to have that
that's the purpose of those funds, putting money aside to do the big things.
Does everybody really look at this document really hard? I mean, it's a lot to digest in a couple of days. I must admit I spent 2.5 hours with Cleve today, and I'm still digesting it.
Well, that's why I see it as preliminary, where I'm definitely going to take it upon myself to digest it even further before it comes up to us for adoption.
And actually, unfortunately, we won't know. We know what we want to spend, but we don't know how much we're going to get until. That's why if we could just get it balanced on our best projections, and then when we know what's going to happen to us, before we cut the $400,000 out now.
I like to be even a bit more conservative. I think this town has always been fiscally responsible by being extremely conservative. I would take this document that I've looked at, and obviously, John, you spent a lot more time with it, with staff. I intend on doing that as well. with any of my other colleagues, is that I think we need to be even more fiscally conservative, because I feel like we're going to get the short end of the stick. In other words, they're holding it up in the air for so long because they're waiting at the right opportune moment to say, oh, we're not going to have the money.
Right.
I think, after reviewing it, seeing as the holiday was yesterday, staff was off, I would like us to digest this department by department and maybe have another meeting between now and the 10th. And see if we, because just by looking at this real fast the last couple of days and spending time with Cleve, I think there's some things that we can tweak in each department.
We could have a workshop next Tuesday night, just focusing,
How's
even have tables instead of, this is awkward.
how's everybody feel about that?
Good idea.
I'd like to
Call
see
for
us
a
do
special
that.
meeting next Tuesday?
Yes.
What's the date?
Third, I believe, isn't it? Third.
The first Tuesday, the 3rd?
Can
Will that
we
work
make it
for everybody?
earlier? How early can we make it?
Noon?
Noon works for me, but I think with my colleague on the end would have a little.
What time?
She said noon. Don't you work?
Noon?
I was kidding.
Some of us have to work.
Yeah.
If you want to increase my salary sufficiently, I won't have to.
What about 6? What about 6?
6 is fine.
Can you make it at 6, Charles, or 6:30?
Sure, I can make arrangements.
Is that okay with everybody? 6 o'clock on the 3rd. Digest this a little bit further in the next week. And a couple things in here I wasn't real enthused about. And this is a preliminary budget, so I think we should go department by department and see what we can do.
So that gives you enough time to get all your department heads in line.
And if you really want to do, it would even be very helpful if you could do it at City Hall, then I have access to, in the conference room, it'd be easier to look up, if you ask a specific question, then you could get an answer promptly.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's gonna have to
Public
be a
would like
public
that.
meeting,
There may
though.
be
We're
some
probably
that
gonna
want
have
to
to
do
meet
it.
over here. Yeah.
They need to be involved
We'll,
also.
we'll let you run back and forth across the street.
Okay, that'll be good for me.
I think that's an excellent.
One request that I would do too, though, I think hopefully it was helpful for Mayor Fennessy and came in and talked to me today. I'd encourage any of you, if you have any questions that you'd like to do that, to get clarification on any item in there. Both Margaret and I will make ourselves available. Margaret after this week, me this weekend, next week to look at that whenever you would like to do that, to clarify any item that is on there, so that you are prepared in going through next week and what items you want to look at cutting back. So
Cleve was very
I would
helpful
welcome
today.
that opportunity.
Excuse me, Cleve. Cleve was very helpful today, and so we spent about 2.5 hours going over a lot of things, but that was only 4 hours ago. So we need to. I think we need to digest this,
Yeah.
sleep on it
How can you sleep on it?
on the left side.
It keeps me up.
Any other questions for Margaret tonight?
If you have any requests of specific comparing salaries between anything, of how you'd like it presented to make it more manageable and digestible, please let me know soon. Now.
I broke mine down in 5 different categories.
Okay.
I don't know if that means anything, but
Thank
I'm
you,
still
Margaret.
confused. Thank you.
Yeah, just to mention quickly, Margaret is actually on vacation this week,
Oh, is she?
and
Wow.
she came back for the meeting tonight.
I think she
If
did that on
you
purpose.
So if you can get information to me, we will do everything we can to have that prepared for you as soon as possible. But get it to me and I will do what I can. Most of John's questions I was able to answer today. There were a few that I got back with him later this afternoon, but we will get you the answers as quickly as we can to any questions you might have.
It's convenient, Margaret. Leave town when things get rough, huh? Thank you, Margaret.
Comment about that.
Okay, how about item 12? Items from the city manager.
Yes. First item that I wanted to mention is we've been working, Mayor Fennessy has been working with some, and I've been trying to keep Councilmember Marquez informed on this also on the Senior Center project. I had another meeting with the architect and Mr. Salinas at the school district today. What we were recommending is we've got it. We've also, as you know, we've met with the 50 Plus Club. We've met with a smaller group of seniors to discuss this. And what we're recommending at this time is that we go to the have a joint meeting with the City Council and the school district to present this issue, the Senior Center to review the plan and the process, what we're looking at, timing, et cetera, where we think we're going with the Senior Center. And also, the school district wants to bring up the issue and talk a little bit about the proposed joint venture to build the gymnasium at the junior high. So those two issues we would have on there, and there may be some other issues. It has been quite a while now since we have had a joint meeting with the school district, so we would like to do that. They are proposing a couple of dates that I talked about with Mr. Salinas. One, first one would be to look at possibly June 16th, which is a school board meeting. It's a Monday night. It's a regular school board meeting. We might be able to have them meet, take care of their business for the first hour, and then we would join with them for an hour after that, so possibly at 8 o'clock. Another possibility we've looked at is the 17th, which is an off Tuesday for us. It's the third Tuesday of June, where we could hold a special meeting and meet with them on that night. Another option is to look at the date of our council meeting, the 24th, and take care of our business at that meeting, and then bring the school district board in, say at 8 o'clock after we've completed our business, and hold that meeting at that time. Wanted to throw those dates out there, get council's preference on any of those dates or others, recommendations that you might have for a joint meeting with the school district. I'm assuming that we would meet here in this building where they have been meeting. We'll work out a way to squeeze all the chairs in so that we can all meet here.
How does everybody feel about that? Is that 16th a good date, or do I do it on a Tuesday? What's your preference?
17th works out well for me. I'm flexible.
Bob?
Tuesday?
Tuesday? Tuesday the 17th?
Tuesday, 17th is a Tuesday.
Third
So we can
Tuesday.
have it as a special meeting.
Yeah, that'll work.
Charles?
That's fine.
17th doesn't sound like the
Please, 17th.
best day. Okay.
I have a question about that because
Sure.
I've had opportunity to speak with some of the seniors.
Sure.
That has all been at staff level thus far, correct? With the engineering and some of the, who's appointed to that? Is that the mayor?
The mayor.
Are you
The
also-
mayor
Yes.
and Charles. Councilmember Marquez. Yeah.
Okay. I just think it's beneficial that we're gonna have this interim
Yeah.
meeting, because I would like to actually have more feedback and more information.
Sure.
'Cause I know it's something that they really would like to see.
As Cleve said, the meetings with the seniors have gone really well because they're the ones that are going to be using the facility.
Yeah.
So we definitely want their input. You know, they like bigger kitchen area or bigger sink.
Yeah, that's what I've
You know,
heard.
stove.
That's what I've heard.
They're the ones who are going to be cooking, so.
So,
Got all those meeting dates, Charles?
well, so we're gonna meet on the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th?
That's the only thing. You would be meeting four Tuesdays in June. If you look at meeting on the 3rd, the 10th would be a regular meeting. It may be possible, we can look at how things go on with the budget. That's the main thing. It may be possible that last meeting on the 24th, perhaps that one could be canceled if we add some other items to some of these other agendas to get.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we look to do that? Bring maybe some of those items up for the special meeting on the 17th where we can move through it so that we're not inundated with just meeting every Tuesday.
Because tonight, for example, we have 2 things. I mean, we can certainly consolidate
Sure.
some things.
Yeah.
Very important items, though.
The other option, like I say, would be to move that meeting to the 24th and combine it with our regular city council meeting and take care of those items then. Which sometimes is more favorable for us because it gives us a week between meetings to actually do our research and prepare those items, but.
Would we rather do that?
Yeah, and that was one of the third dates that you threw out.
Right.
That'll eliminate us meeting, possibility of meeting 4 times, and it'll give us a week break in between.
Bob?
Yeah, that's great. So it'd be the 3rd, the 10th, and the 24th.
24th.
That's settled then.
So on the 24th, we would schedule our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. Hopefully keep it as light as we can to get through it, and then based on how much time we think we'll take, schedule the joint meeting with the school district at either 7:30 or 8 o'clock, depending on how much time we think we'll need.
Sounds good. Anything else, Cleve?
The only other thing I wanted to report on is we are making good progress on the industrial park plans. We are working closely with Norbert Rocha. We've been in touch with him to make sure that he is online. He has some work to do to prepare his plans. Our plans are with Merced County. I talked to Steve Hamilton, who is over the project down there, last Tuesday, and he said that they had a bunch of other plans stacked up that they were trying to review, and that they would begin reviewing ours this week. And it's only a couple of days, so I'm hoping to hear something from him, hopefully by the end of this week, on the approval of those plans. And I will keep you informed of where those are at. And with that, I think that's all that I have to report tonight.
Okay, item 13, items from city council members. Bob?
Well, just to mention, of course, most all of us, I'm sure all of us, were at the ribbon cutting ceremony for the youth center, and just like to invite the general public to go down there and see that, because it's something very special, and Newman has that to be very proud of. So, get a chance, go down there and see what we're doing for the youth. But I'm giving them a place where they can go is really important. That's all I have.
Charles?
No, I don't have anything to say.
Tim?
I wanted to make mention to staff something we hadn't heard in a while. Wondering what was going on out at the Tartaric plant. Did we get all the water out of the ponds? What's the status of that? And another county issue, the eventuality you were going to get back on the landfill snafu with staff there. I know it was publicized, but kind of wanted a more determinate reason of how that came about, because it was something that was very important to our community when he talked about the 1,000 acres.
I will get back to you on that, Timothy. I know I have been in contact with the Public Works Director over there in the county, and I am trying to get more definitive information on that. On the Tartaric issue, last I heard, there was only about 2 feet left in the bottom of that pond, if I recall right. So it is very close, and that's been probably about 2 to 3 weeks ago now, so it may very well be empty now. But I will follow up on that and get a report on what the status of that Tartaric plant is. There's still the question, obviously right now is not the time they would do anything anyway. They wouldn't be prepared to start doing anything until September approximately. But this question's still out there, if they can get all their approvals to move forward once all that water is out. But very likely before this next season comes up, they will have all the water removed if they don't have it already. But I will get a report exactly on that, what is left to do and what their plans are. I'll get that back to you.
I'll comment a little bit on the Tartaric deal. I actually attended a meeting a couple weeks ago in the Solid Waste Management Local Task Force, and Mark Grover was there from Vernalis, and that's where the water's been going. And at that time, he said maybe a week or two, and it'll all be gone. With this hot weather, the hotter it is, the more water they're pulling out of Tartaric. So, talked to him and thanked him again for taking our water. And things are going well over there, though. But he doesn't have a clue, what's been going on after that. But the water it might be out already. Just wanted to thank everybody for coming out for the fun run on Sunday. I think it was a good success, good weather. Thanks to the chief and the staff and everybody that helped us out. And thank Margaret for her hard work on the budget. And I think that's all I have. If there's nothing else,
Move that we adjourn.
a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.